Welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery and Studio. Tonight we're speaking with Keith Leitner in conjunction with his current Cerulean Collective Member Exhibition, which is on view now through January 14th. Hello, Keith.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So I'm going to spotlight Tina's camera here. So tell us about your current exhibition.
So this is a year's worth of work. It's split between studio work and plein air work. I split it up when my studio work, which takes a long time. When it gets backed up, I go outside and I paint in the landscape. And these are places that I really love, and I go to them repeatedly. Um, and They're not as bifurcated as they might appear when you first look at them. They're both about materials, and even with the watercolors, which are based on representation, if you really look at those, you can see the paint being paint. I really embrace that. So they look like something, but there's always paint involved. It's not totally based on image. Um, the abstractions, if you look at those, there's a lot of gesture. There's a lot of handwork in those actually, and uh,
And these are oil on paper?
yes, the abstractions are all oil and paper. It's actually watercolor paper, 140-pound Arches watercolor paper, which I gesso and then I paint on oil on top of that. And the reason why I do that is because making canvases, stretching, building a support, stretching canvas. While I enjoy that, it's a big hairy deal, and very often it can be off-putting for, you do all this work and then you get this pristine, beautiful surface. Then what do you do with it? So with gessoing paper, I find it just not so intimidating or daunting. Um, it's something I picked up when I was in school, and I've just never given up. So
So in the plein air, you're working in watercolor outside?
yes, all the plein air watercolor, they're all plein air at one shot. They're all alla prima. Um,
So that's in contrast to the oils because you work on them over time, right?
yes, the oils are layered. They take a very long time. I'm constantly layering oils. It takes a long time from the dry, and then I sand them and sand back down through. Uh, the background story for that is a notion of palimpsest, which is layering. It comes from in the medieval manuscript tradition. Very often they would use ancient text. They would wash them, put new text on top, and then the old text would shine through. And that can be applied to a lot of things. It's very surface oriented. Um, uh, and again, that's something that takes a long time. I layer things. It doesn't really matter. I don't really think about what I'm doing when I'm layering them. Uh, I just when I sand back down through them, they kind of do their own thing. I really don't have much control over what they look like. I just have to like grit my teeth and sand and hope for the best, quite frankly.
So is it a more meditative process than the plein air watercolor?
Believe it or not, I think the plein air is more meditative because I kind of zone out when I'm painting in the plein air. I really enjoy plein air. I I don't spend actually the time that I'm actually engaged with the oil paintings is, believe it or not, is very little because I'm putting a layer of paint down and then stepping away. It
Mhm.
takes a long time for the dry, so I'm not like I'm spending a lot of time with them. Whereas the plein air watercolors, I actually enjoy that. It is very meditative. These are places I love. I sit down and I really engage with them. Um,
So
it's
how come you choose to work on site and not from like drawings or photographs in the studio?
I enjoy the immediacy. I enjoy reacting to a certain time of day. It's a challenge to really capture something, and very often I I don't just walk out and find a spot, sit down and do it. I spend some time finding a spot, and when I find some sort of engagement, I sit down and I try and capture it ASAP. And the watercolors don't take more at max 2 hours,
Hmm.
whereas the oils take for months.
But it must be like a more intense experience, right? The plein
Yeah,
air.
it is. It's extremely intense. The watercolors, while it is meditative, you're really engaged. It's a given. If it's give and take, you're looking, you're doing, giving, and um, it's not stressful at all. Actually, it's actually quite enjoyable.
So are you like exhausted after you finish one, or can you do more than one in a
No, no. Sometimes if I'm in a good mood, I'll do like 3 or 4 in one day. It's not draining. It's like I said, it's very enjoyable. Um, but like on a good day, I can do like 3 or 4 because they don't take a long time.
and so what is it about the locations that appeal to you?
Uh, the locations I go to are, for lack of a better word, beautiful. I go to Swarthmore College, which the campus is arboretum, so it's really quite beautiful. The other places, if you look at the titles, are land preserves in Chester County, around Westchester. So there's Chestland, there's the Laurels, which is part of the Brainwell Conservancy. These are beautiful places, which I go to a lot. My partner and I both go there a lot to spend time, and they're very dear to me. And I just, for lack of a better word, I want to capture them somehow.
So do you think of like other artists when you're doing your work? I mean, there are people that are in your mind.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, people are probably tired of me saying this, but John Singer Sargent is my go-to for watercolor because he really pushed it. But both Sargent and Homer both push watercolor to what a watercolor should be. You know, both those artists really surprised and pushed watercolor to where people weren't quite sure what they're looking at. If you look at Homer, his ability to he would soak paper and do night scenes, which really people didn't think of with watercolor. And when you look at Sargent's watercolor, they're so saturated. The color is just so intense. Is it oil? Is it watercolor? I think
There's like a stereotype that watercolor is sort of a
yeah, yeah,
pale.
yeah. I think watercolor for a long time has gotten a bad rap. It's soft. It's
Right, sort of watery.
yeah, and splashy, splashy. But it's actually very. It's you if you know what you're doing with it, it can be very intense, and it's just as active and intense as oil. And I'm not downplaying oil. I love oil too. I taught myself watercolor over 25 years ago, and I just go back to it.
Yeah, speaking of which, where did you like go to school and stuff?
Well, I did my undergrad at Temple, and I did my MFA at PAFA, um, and which is funny because PAFA really turned me around. I went on one side thinking what a painting should be, and came out the other side.
Because were you doing plein air on the way in to graduate school?
Yeah, yeah. Going into PAFA, I was self-taught. I did all plein air. I was completely self-taught, and my time at PAFA really opened up my eyes to what painting is and what material is. And it's funny. So if you look at my watercolors from 25 years ago to what I'm doing now, there's a marked difference.
Mhm. You were working abstractly in school, yes?
Yes, I picked up abstraction when I was at school because I was always interested in it and I wanted to find out what it was about, and I wrapped my head around it. And I did it for a long time, and then when I came back to watercolors and plein air, or after a period of time break, it was a whole other ball game. Working abstractly really gave me an appreciation of materials and application, touch. And when I came back to the watercolors, it was a whole other ball game.
So it's like painting is just painting, whether it's abstract or representational.
Yeah, yes, yes. Um, its color, its form, its texture. There's a lot of texture. I hope there's a lot of texture in the watercolors.
It's
Which
there. It's subtle.
yeah,
I
yes,
mean more subtle than the oils, but it's there.
yeah.
So for abstraction, did you have any mentors or artists that you think about?
Oh my God, yeah. When I was at school, Nisa Grassi was a huge influence. Uh, Nisa Grassi, Jan Baltzell, Sam, Bruce Samuelson. Uh, and when I was there, I picked up on people who worked abstract. Pat Steer is a huge influence. Her work is just mind-boggling. Uh, the application, technicality of it all. Like I said, working with those people, I learned appreciation of material, and not just image.
Like
That's
surface and like the objecthood of the
yes,
painting?
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, my time at PAFA was very dear to me. I'm very grateful that I had a chance to do that. I really am. It really opened my eyes.
So are you doing like watercolor and the oils at the same time, or do you do one then the other? Like, do you get like do a lot of watercolor then switch to oil for a while, or are you doing both at the same time?
They're both at the same time. There's always something going on in the studio. I'm always working out in the field too. I tried watercolor abstraction, but the nature of the watercolor, and this could be my own shortcoming, I haven't been able to uh, get the watercolor to a point where it's just surface. If you notice my watercolors, there's not a lot of horizon lines. There's not a lot of blue sky and green grass because I want to embrace the fact that it's a painting. Its color's on a flat surface.
Yeah, you're really like right in the middle of like wooded areas.
Yeah, I go into it because I want to embrace that, and I can't for some reason. I mean, it may come eventually, but the watercolors. When I've tried abstract with watercolor, there's always an airiness and a depth to it, which I don't really want in my painting. That's why I use the oils for the abstraction because they're like boom, flat surface. And my watercolors, I go in deep to the settings I'm in because I want to, cut down that whole window thing. That a painting's not a window, and
Right.
that's why.
Yeah, you don't have long vistas in your.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry about Bertie, but I don't want a window. I'm looking at something up close and personal. I'm trying to reinforce the fact that it's colors on a flat surface.
Actually, I do think it gives them an abstract quality being right in the middle because you're like surrounded by color and shape here.
Yeah, I'm hoping that some point. I don't know. I don't that these things would come together at some point. Uh, there's some sort of dialogue happening, and it is what it is. So I'm just going to keep working and see what happens. But there's a dialogue happening between the two, um, and we'll see what happens. I
Yeah.
don't know if there'll be imagery in the abstractions. I don't know if there'll be more abstraction in the watercolors. It's at this point, I'm just going to keep working and see what happens.
Yeah, that's usually the way it happens is
Yeah, yeah,
through the work itself.
yeah.
So you'll be teaching Alla Prima watercolor class with us starting um, January 19th. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to teaching?
Yeah, so I use still life because I find it really approachable. It's not very intimidating as opposed to taking class out for plein air, which I do, or figure, which I don't do. Still life because it's still, and it's about objects in space. And the class I teach starts from drawing basic drawing, because a lot of people can't draw, and you need to be able to draw to paint. And then we talk about color theory, and how you apply that to these things. And still life sounds simple, but it can be very complex. And it's the still life is there to hang your expression on. And
Do people need a lot of experience to take your class, or?
No, I start from the very basics. Very basics. I mean, drawing 101, color theory 101, it's all from start to finish. And walk off the street and take it.
So it's like all levels would be.
Yeah, even people with experience can come in and they can, if they have, a grounding, they can, I'm more than happy to help them, find their own voice, do what they want to do. Uh, so there, again, it's open to anybody, quite frankly.
That's great. Well, and if people are interested, they can sign up on the website, ceruleanarts.com. And well, it's a wonderful show. Thanks so much, Keith.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
And like I said, the show's up through January 14th. So you can come down to see it, and everything's also available on the website. So thanks again, and have a great night.
Good night.